have their own money, their own structure, that lived with soccer since they were born.
Right.
It's the first generation of true soccer fans. Until now, it was somebody that was baseball, but it started to liking soccer,
right,
football, and fell in love with this sport,
right.
or whatever. But people that were born with soccer from the, and now, so it's the first time that we have that generation in the US. And that's, again, I think that cherry of the cake is going to be the 26 World Cup.
Yeah, it makes. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting World Podcast. And today I'm here with Roberto Silva. And Roberto, first of all, thanks for taking the time. How's everything going?
Oh, good. Weather is hot here in Texas, so I can't complain about that. I just had a good morning tennis game with some friends, so it's a good way to start the day with some sport and then talking about sports. So
right.
A great way to start.
Perfect day already.
That's it. Looking good.
I can't imagine though. I mean, like, I don't know what kind of temperature are you getting in Texas?
Well, we're talking about, we had last week, we had 109 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 44, 45 Celsius. Yeah. So it's been hot. So we end up playing tennis at 6:15 in the morning. We were there before the sun is up. We're just waiting for the sun to go up, and then we'll start playing. Otherwise, it's impossible.
Yeah, you kind of have to, though, right? I mean, like, just to don't be sitting there or working out in the heat.
That's it. But it's still hot. It's still hot, even at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. But
no, I can imagine. I mean, like, we had like some really hot temperatures in Portugal and like in Europe now these weeks as well. I'm sure you're aware, but like I'm a Norwegian, so like I'm used to kind of like a summer temperature of like 20 to 25. So here the other week, I had 38, and I was like, whoa, this is too much, So, it is what it is. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about your experience and all the cool stuff that you've been doing and are doing in the sport industry. And for those of you that are tuning in, make sure to like the video and subscribe as well, so you get, great tips and insights every week from leaders like Roberto. So, Roberto, I wanted to kind of like start off the conversation a little bit with, you can kind of like talk a little about how your journey in the sport industry began. Just talk a little bit like how it all started, how your passion of sports came to life.
Yeah, well, I gotta be careful, because if I tell everything that I did on the details, it's gonna take 2 or 3 hours on the podcast. So I'll try to summarize as best as possible. But trying to do a long story short, I always been passionate about sport, especially soccer, but sports overall, right? I'm from Brazil, so that helps a little bit with this soccer experience. Yeah. And I always wanted to work with soccer, even when I was growing up. I was involved with the clubs that I was close by and all of those things, but ended up going to the finance market. I graduated in economics, started in the finance market. And life brought me back to sports when I became the sports, the finance person for the marketing department of Telecom Italia Mobile in Brazil, right? So, and they had a ton of investments in sports and in soccer. And because I took care of budget, I took care of the contracts and all of that, it didn't take long for me to be the marketing, director, sports marketing director for Tim in south of Brazil. Right. And since then, I've been involved in soccer for a long period of time. I ended up doing an MBA in sports management in Barcelona. I worked with some of the major clubs in Brazil, some of the major agencies, agencies like Traffic Sports. I did geo events with a global TV events agency in Brazil. Yeah. Then I worked with Flamengo, with Fluminense, with Atlético Paranaense, and some other things. But at some point, I had a green card, and I was about to lose the green card. And I usually say that it was my first decision that I made for my family and not for myself. And I decided to come to the U.S. I quit Flamengo right on a year of a World Cup in Brazil, and I left Brazil, came to the U.S., which was a little bit of a crazy thing. Came to the U.S. to say that I had my wife, 2 kids, and 9 bags. I have a picture in the Austin airport when we landed. I say that everything I had in 2014, January of 14, was in that picture, right? Basically, right? So, few months after I got here, I became the right hand for the investor of the amateur team here in Austin, was the Austin Aztecs.
Yeah.
Later on, became the general manager for the team.
Yeah.
We lost our stadium in a flood. I ended up going to work with one of the other owners of the team at the Circuit of the Americas, which is the Formula One racetrack here in Austin in the US.
Yeah.
I was director for private and special events with Circuit of the Americas. And that went on for a couple of years until we got the rights for the franchise back. And then we built a stadium, put a team together again. Nice. And I was the general manager for the Austin Bold, which was the second team that I worked here in the US, was a second division team.
Right.
Beginning of the pandemic, the owner of the company said, we are sports, we're events company, and with no events in the near future, there's no company. And that's when I left that whole organization between Circuit of the Americas and Austin Bold.
Yeah.
And partnered with a local journalist here in Austin. And the first person that hired me for the Austin Aztecs, that first owner of the team. And then we created the Striker Texas, which is now the Striker Soccer News, and that's been going on for the last 2 years and a half. We went live in February of last year, and in short terms, the Striker Soccer News basically covers local soccer in the US the way that soccer is covered anywhere else in the whole world, right?
Yeah.
So that's just to explain what we do. It's a little bit hard to say why we're so special to somebody that's from Europe or South America, because it's what every media outlet does covering soccer, but nobody does that in the US. And that's why we decided. We found that there was a big opportunity. The soccer business in the US is this big, but the media coverage is very, very small, right? So there's an opportunity for us to grow, especially with the World Cup in 26 coming to the US. And so that's what we are. So we started with Texas as a test market, and we just started our expansion 3 or 4 weeks ago to California, and 2 weeks ago to Atlanta. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we got a little bit more surprises to come for our audience.
Awesome. That's first of all, like, it's an incredible story and an impressive way to like summarize everything.
I tried, man. I tried. I did.
I'm like, well, what else am I supposed to ask now? But no, I mean, like, let's dive a little bit more into the Striker here, because talk a little bit about, more about, the company itself, and a little bit about also how it all came to life. Talk a little about like why and how essentially did this all started.
Yeah, I think it's a cool story because it adds beliefs and contributions from the different co-founders, right? So everything started when beginning of the pandemic, first couple of weeks of the pandemic, maybe a little bit more, maybe first month of the pandemic.
Right.
I got a call from the local reporter, that the person that had been covering soccer in Austin for the last few years for the local newspaper, the Austin American Statesman.
Yeah.
And so he calls me and said, Roberto, can we meet? I need some advice. I said, okay, let's do that. So he comes to my house, we meet on the backyard, one side of the table, the other one is on the other side. We had no idea what the COVID whole thing was. It was on that moment that was all things. But and in the conversation, he says, hey, at that point, Austin FC, which is the local MLS team here in Austin, right? It was about to be founded. It was already founded. They were going to start their play their first season a year later.
Right.
And he comes to me and said, Roberto, I don't think the mainstream media, the media here in Austin, is going to cover Austin FC the way he deserves and the way there's an opportunity to cover. I'm thinking about quitting the Statesman and creating something, but I'm a journalist. I don't know how to do. I have no idea how to create this. So I'm talking to some people that could somehow give me some advice. And I told him, I said, Chris, I'm not gonna give you advice. I'm gonna be your partner, but I got few conditions for that if you want me, right? One is, I think this product that you want to do It's perfect, but I don't think we should do just Austin. I think we should do all state of Texas. I think this is a product for the whole state.
Right.
Second, I don't think it's just a Major League Soccer product. I think this is something that we should cover the whole pyramid of soccer: man, woman, first, second division, youth, college, be the destination for soccer, right?
Yeah.
And third, I think we have to be a little bit more entertainment, not just be that pure journalistic thing. We don't get me wrong, we got to be credible, we got to do the journalistic in-depth feature, but let's have fun doing this, right? So if you go to my social media, our social media account, for example, it looks like we're a person. Doesn't look like we're a company, right? We have fun, we make jokes of ourselves, of the reporters. So it's a little bit more easygoing. I think we still can do much better on the entertainment side, and we have a lot of things planned for that, and we'll get that. But Chris looked at me and said, "Hey, Roberto, that's too much money. It's too big. I don't know. I said, "Chris, help me out here. Take care. Make sure that we hire the best reporters for soccer in the state of Texas, and I'll take care of the rest. You know, we are going to be as good as the reporters that we have." I usually say that we are an HR company more than we're a media company because it's all about the reporters that we have. That's how good we are.
Right.
So I hopped in a plane again in the middle of the pandemic. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but I flew with a mask, goggles, and over. I was like, I felt like I was in
the Windsor thing, right?
Oh, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards, because there was nobody knew what was going on.
Right.
And I flew to LA to meet with Rene van der Zanden, who's a Dutch guy that's been in the US for many years, many decades even. And I presented the opportunity to him. I said, "Hey, Rene, would you like to be our partner and our angel investor in this?" And he's like, "I'm in, but I got two conditions for this." I said, "Yeah, what are they?" He said, "Well, first of all, I think this is a nationwide product. I don't think this is a local product. And second is, I'll help you take this off the ground as an angel investor, but you got to be ready to expand beyond Texas and find other people to help us take to that next level." And so we opened a seed round a few months ago, and we're in that process now of bringing investors in and being able to really expand and get to the point where we become the main soccer news outlet, local outlet of the United States by 2026, and we think we can get there.
That's awesome. And I mean, like, it's a really cool story. But I think I mean, like, you talk a little bit about the pandemic and like all, I guess, in a sense, the challenges around that. And I mean, like, obviously it kind of, you said you focus obviously on the credibility, but also on the entertainment side of thing. And I wanted to just, working with all these reporters, which you say is like a critical part of, the company and the success, of course. Talk a little bit about how, I guess, the company has adjusted to the content requirements during the pandemic, because obviously how people are consuming content now obviously changed as well during the pandemic, because suddenly people were staying at home. Everyone, it completely changed like how people consumed and interacted with content. Talk a little bit about like that process, and I guess maybe some stuff you learned about that.
I would say also I would add something that I think it's important for the process of creating content with the pandemic is that the quality of the production overall came down, made it easier for everybody, right? So as if you think before the pandemic, if somebody was posting like we're doing now a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever it is, interview online, was something that was felt a little bit like production, right? Now you got people on CNN or Global TV or NBC or whatever doing things with that, right? So I think it was how can I say, it made it much more democratic. The generation of content, it made it easier for people to generate content, and I think that's an important piece of the process. About the change of how to generate content also now we're in, before and after the pandemic, we don't know, right? Because we started with the pandemic already running, right? And it was interesting because it was funny, here in the US we had a ton of benefits from the government to support companies to keep their employees, and we are now investing in a new company, hiring a lot of people to work, but we couldn't apply for those because we didn't exist before the pandemic, right? So it was an interesting moment. But anyways, I do believe, like I said in the initial presentation, that we are as a good, every company is, but I think we are more affected by that, is that we are as good as the reporters, as the people that we have, right? And that's a challenge that we have when we start expanding to new markets, can we find that right person that fits, that communicates, that understands the soccer fan base, right? And that's who we are, right? We deliver content is specific for the soccer fan, that can't find that information anywhere, right? We say that our mission as a company is to help develop soccer wherever we are, and we do that by educating people about the sport. If it's for a soccer mom that's going to a game for the first time, or if it's that hardcore soccer fan, if they come to the Striker, they're going to get all the news. We have beat writers that are every training session, they're in every game, they know the players, know the structure of the team, know the fan base, know what they want. We talk a lot to the fan base to write for them. We write not what we want to write, we write what they want to hear. And I think that's what makes us. We have some very interesting numbers. For example, our trial conversion, we have a 30-day free trial. Our trial conversion is beyond 80%. Our churn is below 2%. Right. So there is a big challenge that we have. Yeah. Because people have so many subscriptions, to have people to subscribe. Yeah. But once they do subscribe, they don't leave, because what we're delivering something that they can't get anywhere else. Literally, they can't, right? Because if you're talking about Barcelona or Chelsea or Man U or Manchester, Man City, you'll find that content or information everywhere. Right. Yeah. And when you're talking about NWSL, MLS, USL Championship, and the local here in the US, and I'm going to say North America, because we're putting our foot a little bit in Canada and a little bit in Mexico, and we want to, like I said, take over this North America market by 26. Nobody does that, not in English. Right. But talk a little bit about the audience, though, right? Because you talk a little bit about like the hardcore fan, but also kind of like the soccer mom, right? How do you balance that out in terms of what kind of content you produce, and like, again, in a sense, the stories, right, that are going on, because that's like on one each side of the spectrum right there. That's it. Yeah, I think one challenge that we found out, right? Yeah. Well, let me go a little bit back. Sure. Our goal, the way I explain, the way we talk to our reporters and to our editors is this: we have to be the best on what we do. Whatever level of soccer we're doing, we gotta be the best, right? Yeah. So we know for a fact nobody does coverage of the Texas teams in MLS better than we do, or the Dash. I could today easily say that we have the best coverage of MLS and the NWSL in the whole US, talking about the teams that we have, right? Nobody does what we do. Of course, some people talk about in less in depth, but more teams. But sure, I'm sorry, we're gonna get there. But so we do that with that. We do with MLS. We do pretty good with the USL Championship here. But we have struggled a little bit with the youth. The youth was a challenge for us, right? Especially in the US, because it is at the same time that it's so structured. It's not structured at all. There's so many leagues, so many teams, so spread across the country, that we struggle to find that right way to cover the youth. Yeah. So we are not delivering what we wanted to deliver in that market the way we wanted when we started, right? So, but we found out that the way to cover that is talking about the people, talking about those special moments, right? So in the beginning, if you go to the Striker Texas, what we did on the beginning, we're trying to cover games on the youth side. Right. We found out it doesn't make sense, right? So there's some adjustments that we created. So now, if there is a cool story, for example, that was one of our best stories so far, was of a player that was a refugee that did a tryout, was playing for high school, did a tryout for FC Dallas and got into their second team,
Nice.
the
Yeah.
USL 2 team, one team. So that story we went, and then 6 months later, when he becomes a citizen of the US, we were there at the citizenship ceremony,
Nice.
celebrating with them and doing a
Yeah.
story about that, right? So
Yeah.
we talk a little bit about those special stories and
Mm.
special people more than we're
Yeah.
talking about the
Right.
game itself. But it's all glued together because of the passion that everybody has for soccer.
Right. No, I mean, it makes total sense. And I mean, like, I think it's important here, though, to obviously, talk a bit about your background in a sense too, and your vast experience, like in the soccer world, both in and outside the U.S., Brazil, and in the U.S. obviously. And if you wanted to kind of like, through the experiences that you had over time now and before coming to the US, and starting and being part of the striker, like what have been like some key lessons that you brought with you that you're taking with you now in the company with the striker?
I'm sorry, Ole. Can you repeat that? I had some noise here on the back end. I had to. Can you repeat that?
No worries. So essentially what I was saying is that, like, obviously you have vast experience from the soccer industry, working with top clubs in Brazil, and obviously having played in different sports organizations in Austin. Like, what have been some key lessons about the football industry, the soccer industry, that you're bringing with you in your role now as a striker?
Yeah, I do believe that, how can I say this? First of all, I think the different industries, especially in sports, they're very connected in so many different ways, right? So if you have the knowledge on one, you're going to understand the other one.
Sure.
Of course, there are some specifics. For example, I think my biggest lesson that I had was working in Brazil with,
Right.
like I said, some of the biggest clubs and biggest agencies and sponsors,
Right.
And living and breathing soccer 24 hours a day. I thought I knew it all. When I came to the US, I said, oh, I'm going to know more than everybody else, right? I'm going to be special there. And when you get here, you truly end up seeing that, yes, there's a lot of things that are similar. Of course, we have FIFA that overrules everything, but you get to a moment where all the leagues are different, right? It's a whole different thing. You find out that the networking system is a little bit different than you had before, right? You have to build that whole moment up. So I think the biggest lesson that I had moving from Brazil to the US, and I tell this to my friends that are coming or they're trying to come to the US, is don't take for granted the things that you know, because you're going to have to learn a lot. There's a lot. It is a different market, although there are some similarities. So I think that was an important one. 100%. I think that sorry.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. The other thing that I think, Ole, is what makes, I think, soccer so special is, and I know it's a cliche already, but it is the sport of the people, right? And especially when you talk here about in the US, where it is so expensive for you to play or to watch, football or NFL, or football and NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball and hockey and all of that. Soccer allows, it's more democratic and brings a bigger group of people. But an interesting thing, going back to your last question related to this one, is the fact that because the media, the mainstream media, doesn't give soccer the coverage that it deserves in a way. It is very interesting that although the community of soccer today is maybe the majority, there's some researchers that shows that there's the soccer followers or lovers in the US are a pretty big chunk of people. But we feel that community feel as a minority because they feel that they're not heard, right? So you have, again, a great opportunity for the audience because the audience is out there. But the supply for that content is not necessarily out there, right? And so there's opportunities for growth especially like I said, in the next 4 years with the World Cup in 26 being here,
That's massive.
the Olympic Games in 28 in LA also. So there's going to be an exponential growth of the sport overall in the next 8 years.
Right.
And I am sure 8 years from now, nobody's going to be questioning if what soccer is in the US. I think it's really going to be we have already made that statement many times that it's already stronger than it looks. But 8 years from now, I don't think anybody's going to be questioning that.
Right, but I mean, like you can even just see that with the recent partnership between MLS and Apple, right? In terms of like
Yes,
where the industry is going, right? So you can always kind of see that there's a lot going in there. And even when I was studying there, like in 2015 and 2016, people were talking about like MLS being one of the fastest growing major league sports. From a fan's perspective over time, right? Of like acquiring new fans, right?
That's it. And there's a strong reason and an easy one that I use this as an argument, and usually is helps end that discussion, is saying, if you think that the soccer really was born in the US in 94, 95, right? Sure. The World Cup in 94 and MLS is founded in 95.
Yeah.
This is the first moment in the history of this country that you have people that are economic active, that have their own money, their own structure, that lived with soccer since they were born.
Right.
It's the first generation of true soccer fans. Until now, it was somebody that was baseball, but started to liking soccer,
right,
football, and fell in love with this sport,
right,
or whatever. But people that were born with soccer from the and now, so it's the first time that we have that generation in the US, and that's, again, I think that cherry of the cake is going to be the 26 World Cup.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think, like, we talk a little about I guess the opportunities that are out there, and I think that leads me very well to looking a little bit into the future of soccer and content, and like what would you say, and what would be some key skills that upcoming football leaders should focus on, kind of students, young professionals that want to work in soccer?
Yeah, there's a big challenge in the United States about the sports market overall for the work marketplace, is the fact that there's a lot of people with quality that works with sports, right? And it's different than some other countries where the supply and demand has a little bit of a loss balance in that. In here in the US, so there's a lot of schools, good schools. There are a lot of good networking events. It is really a mature market, and because of that,
right,
you got to be prepared for in the sports market to make less money maybe than your neighbor that's on the IT market, because right. it's there's so much. So there's a challenge in that sense, right? But I always tell everybody that I work with, make sure that you have knowledge, make sure that you network as much as you can. I think that's the main part of anything, and take any opportunity. Here in the US, a little bit different than South America. I'm not sure how Europe is, but I think Europe is a little bit like South America, especially for the people that are coming into the market. Use the opportunity of volunteering to the teams or to the clubs or to the events,
right?
And those things are going to give you the experience, and they're going to give you the networking to allow you to move forward. I hired in the Aztecs and in the Bold and in Sacred Heart Americas many of those people that either came as freelancers to participate in some events, or just volunteered to some of the things that we're doing. I look at them and say, oh man, this person is good, knowledgeable, fits well to the company. Let's bring it into the market. So for that newcomer to the market, I think trying to participate as much as they can, and of course generating experience and networking, it's a must.
100%. If you want to give like I guess like a final advice before we wrap up to any student out there looking to break in, like what would it be?
And I think I just said, but I'll add this. I'll add something. It was a lesson that it took me a while for me to to learn over time. Is we take care of products, or we worked with taking care of products and doing planning for products or our lives, right?
Yep.
And sometimes we forget that we are a product ourselves, right? And we have to be selling that product to someone. So, but at the same time, make sure that that product has a good plan.
Yeah.
That who's the buyer for that product, and don't be too generic. You find out that buyer. Well, who's my buyer? Or my buyer is Nike, or my buyer is Manchester United, or if that is, focus on that, put a plan in place to be there, and start working with that. And I'm sure you're gonna achieve those goals if you do that, if you really deal as a product.
Absolutely. Well, with that, Roberto, I would like to thank you, so much for taking the time and for sharing your tips and insights with everyone here. And for those of you, that have been all the way at the end, make sure to subscribe and join the Sporting Global community as well, so you can start networking, get some tips and insights, and find some good programs, and of course, job opportunities to get your foot in the door. And it's free to sign up, so make sure to check that out. And lastly, Roberto, I have a little challenge for you that we always do at the Sporting Global podcast. And so I have to teach you a little bit of Norwegian before we wrap up here.
Okay. Oh, that's I'm not that good with languages, so let's see what we can do.
All right. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means see you later in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
All right, vis nasket.
Vi snakkes.
Vi snacks.
There you go. Good job.
All right.
Thank you so much, Roberto.
Sounds good. Thank you, Olet. Thank you, everybody. And same as you guys, follow us on social media, The Striker News, on Twitter, and check us out. I think we got some cool stuff, some cool English covered of soccer, of the sport.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Roberto, and we'll talk very soon.
See you. Bye-bye.